Hello and welcome to Stories Across Borders. Here we talk about stories across a variety of different mediums, books, movies, games, you name it, we've discussed it. As always though, our one rule is that we can only talk about things in terms of storytelling. Anything like effects, art, mechanics, all of that is out unless it relates directly to how the story is being told. I'm Daniel Radford, author, Armored Zealot, and also your host, and I'm joined once more by Jay and John Kernan.
Hello, it's us again.
Howdy, Pilgrim.
We're back with Star Wars. I was going to say etc., but no, just Star Wars,
Yeah, no, nothing else, just Star Wars.
as the universe should be. Just Star Wars.
Damn right. And having wrapped up the Star Wars movies, more or less anyway, we're moving into a different branch of media now and taking a look at the Disney Wars TV series. Primarily, we'll be discussing The Mandalorian and, by extension, the Book of Boba Fett, because that was just The Mandalorian 2.5. But there's a
That it
chance
was.
we might dip into stuff like Andor or Kenobi as well if we have time.
So it's a lot of shows, a lot of good shows
There is a lot of good
to
stuff.
talk about.
Might as well start with the main one though, with season 3 of The Mandalorian having wrapped up not that long ago. Are we all up to date on that now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Excellent.
of course. As it released.
Time to see how much I have forgotten since our first attempt at recording this. So,
We were talking about the dark times.
no, that was last time. How are we feeling about The Mandalorian and Star Wars as TV overall? Is it in fact the way?
I still
love it.
enjoyed season 3 a lot.
People love to. I don't know why people are complaining about season 3. I can't really think of that many good reasons why they would.
Yeah, it was weird for me because at the end of episode 1, I was like, oh, maybe the raving lunatics were correct for once, because the first episode for me was real rough on the pacing. Like, it was just jumping all
can't
over the
remember
place
it.
with, like, nothing happening. But that was mostly fixed in episode 2, and by 3, everything was smooth sailing.
I feel like they definitely were like rushing to put all of the concepts from season 2 and Book of Boba Fett together to make a cohesive start, and things were a bit slow going into it. But it was good. It was a good series. Season 3 of Mandalorian was fantastic, in my opinion. But I'm one of the people speaking on a podcast, so all the people who will inevitably disagree with my opinion can't hurt me here.
Yeah, I mean, I understood. I understood some of the complaints, but even the little ones here and there people brought up that I agreed with, I'm like, yeah, but that was enough for you not to like it? I mean,
As for someone who hates the sequel movies viscerally,
As is well
as someone who
established.
really as is well established, as someone who really wanted to like the sequel movies but hated them, and has a bit of a chip on his shoulder against Disney in terms of how they've handled Star Wars in that regard. I feel like people are so eager to nitpick these shows. They're taking them apart with a toolkit, trying to find flaws. People always look at their own generation of Star Wars. They look back on it with rose-tinted fighter goggles, and
wait, she has her own tint of goggles?
let's not talk about her. Uh, but people like to look back with like just nostalgia fueled joy at like the prequels and the original trilogy. I adore the prequels. I adore the original trilogy. They're all kind of mid movies, but Star Wars is carried by its world building, by its aesthetic, by honestly at this point a little bit by its memes, among other things.
Yeah.
And the TV shows that have been released have been quality, especially by Star Wars standards. They have given us more of that galaxy far, far away. They've given me watching it. They've given me the feeling of watching Star Wars. That's what it's a vibe. I don't know how to explain it, but the TV shows have nailed it. And in terms of the Mandalorian, I think they've really hit it on the head. And I feel like season 3 felt almost more Star Warsy than even the other seasons did.
Yeah, I think now that it had gotten some of its extra heavy stuff out of the way, it was a little more willing to lean into the silliness, which is what which is kind of what Boba Fett did, but Boba Fett also didn't have quite the same heart or level of quality as Mandalorian. So like, it's still the Mandalorian quality, but I think it's being even more willing to. It's doing other really good things too, of course. But I feel like season three was even more
I
willing to lean into the
I
goofiness that
don't
I
know
love in
about
Star
that.
Wars.
I feel like there's been plenty of goofiness through seasons 1 and 2 as well, and definitely in Book of Boba Fett.
There was. I'm not talking about one and two not being goofy. I'm talking about season three leaning into it even more. Like, okay, well, all that stuff is over. Now our little Grogu buddy can hug aliens while they go "Bad baby" and do his badass little baby flips. Like that
people
kind of
acting
stuff.
like people acting like Grogu doing all of this like
I
silly
love it.
forced stuff, right? People are acting like, oh, it's so stupid. Oh, I can't take it seriously. It's like, bro, Yoda was a puppet originally. He
Yes.
did. He was just as fucking silly. He was bonking Luke on the head with a stick. Shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? This is different. Like, like we haven't been doing this the whole time.
Well, look how
Come
obvious
on.
that alien over there is a guy in a suit. Oh, you mean that guy in one of the costumes from the original movies? Yeah, shut up.
These motherfuckers, like, they need to chill. People, that's what I say. They search for problems to have with these shows. I feel like, and
Okay.
some of it is just I don't know bitterness. Some of it is nostalgia fueled hatred for anything new. I feel like a lot of people have a really like difficult time looking at things and how should I say this? Separating bias from quality and being able to appreciate something for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think season 3 in particular got a lot of unwarranted hate for a very specific reason.
Oh yeah, oh yes, of course. Well, we should talk about Bo-Katan. It's like, oh, why isn't Din Djarin the main character anymore? Why isn't he
He
going to be
is,
Mandalore? Bro, bro,
for
he
one
is the
thing.
main character. He doesn't want to be Mandalore. Like, that's never been his character. It's
Yeah,
never been what he's aimed for.
he's the main character. He's just not fully the driving force of the plot anymore for some of the season, and that's because he's never been a leader or anything like that. Anyways, he can bring a group of people together, but that's not the same thing, and he doesn't want to be either. So like that's
People
fine. He's
wanted
he's literally a cowboy. Like
people wanted the hero's journey loop to grab my man and drag him in and force him to be the leader of his people. But my man said no because there was someone else who, if you had watched the other quality content, you know, well, mainly the Clone Wars, Rebels was there, but that's kind of mid. But if you'd watch the other quality content with Bo-Katan, introducing her character, building her up, we go into season 3 of Mandalorian, and we see her completing a character arc that has been going on since before Din Djarin existed. And like, I don't know, guys, you're complaining about this Mandalorian season 3. It's not my fault. It's not anybody's. It's not the writer's fault that you didn't watch the other material.
yeah, you can't blame
Um,
anybody for the fact that you weren't already a fan of Mandalorians. You're just a fan of the Mandalorian.
and even if you like, obviously these titles, these series, it's a little bit unfair. You know, they have to stand on their own. But even if you cut out all of the other stuff, they do so much establishing of Bo-Katan in season 2 of The Mandalorian and the beginning of season 3 of The Mandalorian that makes the decisions with her character make sense. She is set up to be the foil to Din Djarin. She is supposed to be someone who has walked both ways and understands
Even in season 1, she
how her people are
is
supposed
when
to
they
function.
introduce her. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah. It's been a while, but
Yeah.
basically the stuff where she's been present has been they've they've her connection with Din, the bond that they have, the way that they've kind of overcome their cultural barriers together in order to unite their people together. He being the one that reached out to her, she being the one that's returned to her family name to unite the Mandalorians. They're two parts of the whole. It's why they come together. It's why they're both there at the end. Mandalorians stronger together, fighting against Moff Gideon in the final scenes of season 3, it's great writing. It's great writing, and it makes sense that she's taken that position. But I mean, let's be honest, half the people who hate how she is in the story are just like too fanatically devoted to Din Djarin. The other half probably just hate women, which, as we've seen with a lot of the recent Star Wars shows, there's a large portion of the community that really undermines any arguments against these shows just by existing, because they only dislike some of the writing choices because they involve female characters.
I don't understand why anybody would want Mr. Joel Last of Us to lead the Mandalorians anyways. He's just gonna get his head squished soon.
Spoilers, Last of Us Season 2, question mark? If you
Fucking
haven't
play the
played those
video
games,
nerds.
Ooh.
Well, look, bro, for those that really hope The Last of Us and really enjoy the narrative, I really hope beyond hope that they're like super loyal to the narrative of the second game as well, so that all of our TV watchers can feel the visceral, painful disappointment and hatred that I felt towards The Last of Us Part 2. What a fucking awful game. But we're not here to talk about The Last of Us Part 2.
Right.
Mandalorian Season 2 good.
Mandalorian, yeah.
Season 3 good.
Mandalorian season 3 good. Bo-Katan good. Stop being women haters.
Din isn't a leader. He was never
He's a cowboy.
He was never a leader.
The Mandalorian is almost literally an Old West story in Star Wars for at least the first 2 seasons, and Din is a cowboy.
Even more than
He's
that, he's
100%,
a follower.
he is a-
He is a fanatic zealot follower. Like,
Well, we see him grow out of that role, I think. He's definitely there at the start, but
yes. But like, I guess the
his character journey...
his character journey isn't transcend all that and become leader. It's become accepting of other people and other ways of the way. It's not...
Yeah, that, and if
like
he was going to be part of a
quick
group...
to do that, though. I think he's like pretty swift to come to accepting that. His journey is less so about accepting others, because he's quite willing to, especially when he first meets Bo-Katan and her crew. Like, he's questioning of them, but he doesn't deny them or stand against them. His journey is growing to understand the galaxy and his place in it. He has to have a personal journey to understand where he came from, who he's going to be, and his interpersonal relationships with Bo-Katan, with Grogu, with the armor, with his people, and beyond. He's learning with God, why can't I remember his name? Lord of the Navarro, who used to be the head of the Bounty Hunters Guild. Great character as well. Grief Karga. Yeah, he's bonds with him. All these friendships and relationships he's getting, he is developing as this kind of like emotionally cold bounty hunter, ends justify the means guy, and he's coming to understand the value of family, friendships, relationships. That's his journey. It's very personal. His journey was not to become a unifier of his people. It wasn't to rise to station. It wasn't to acknowledge responsibility. That was Bo-Katan's character arc.
A lot of it was just coming to terms with his own inner conflicts. Like, trying to make peace between, like, the pulls he feels in different directions and the culture he's grown up in.
And he's not even fully there yet.
No.
He's got room to grow. The Darksaber never did what he told it to do, because he was never fully committed to what he was doing. He had never fully accepted his role in everything, his ideals. And I mean, we're getting more Mandalorian, so excited to see where it goes with him, especially when he's going to be working with the New Republic.
Yeah, and I'd have to say, if he was going to be a part of a group, he also gives specifically really strong, like, first lieutenant vibes. He makes me think of the hyper-competent second in command if he were to be part of a group, who just kind of...
he's got kind of Captain Rex vibes, doesn't he? In some ways.
Yeah. Like, he would be the first mate on a crew.
He's not
stoic, competent, he's badass, trusted by everybody.
That's true, yeah. Well, he does kind of have some protagonist energy to him, though. But it's even departing from his like second in command role, which he does fit well. It's not unify the country protagonist energy. It's lone wolf on a mission protagonist energy, which is always what he has been. I don't know why people suddenly expected him to become Mandalore. It was never going to happen. It wouldn't.
He's either going to be a cowboy or a lieutenant. Like,
exactly, it would have just been pandering. It wouldn't have made sense. They chose to do the thing that made more sense for the character, and some people are angry because I guess they just want to suck Din Djarin's dick all day. Anyway, heated. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fuck
I
you,
mean,
Star Wars fans. You're ruining Star Wars.
you're very right though. Like, it just made no sense for the character. Like, none of his arc up to that point was building up to him being a unifier. It was building up to him finding his place within his own culture and accepting his role as Grogu's mentor.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there were some cases, and I felt so validated near the end because at first I felt ignored. One of the only things that actually was like pissing me off a little bit early on was when they were doing so much. Will they, won't they might be the wrong term, but there seemed to be so many hints that it would just make perfect sense for Bo to have the dark saber, and they weren't coming up with any plan for her to get it. And when she helps Mr. Din get out of his little predicament with the Men in Black alien,
It's a great way to describe it. But yeah.
I was my first thought was like, hey, this is a perfect time. She just saved his life in a trial by combat. Give her the dark saber right now. She just earned it. Like, you
I'm
could
just
use
saying,
your own
though.
traditional excuses to hand it over, and then later he brings that up when he actually hands it over, and I'm
Yeah, he
just
does
like,
just that. Yeah.
I just have my moment of being the guy at the heist, like, son of a bitch, I'm in.
Why? Here's my take, guys. Bo-Katan should have never saved Din Djarin. Men in Black alien for Mandalore. That's who I want to see wielding the dark saber. He should have kept it. He defeated
Men
Din
in,
Djarin. He earned it.
Men in Black Alien was pretty fucking cool.
Just
He was
shows
pretty
up
cool.
at
He's
the
very menacing.
just shows up at the Enclave, lifts the dark saber, and they're like, "Huh." I mean, I guess.
Reminded me of a
Uh-huh.
boss battle from Star Wars Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
On Raxus. You fight a little Jedi Master dude who kind of goes wacko and starts building recreations of the Jedi Temple and other things out of scrap metal. Gave me that vibe. But he was just a little guy. Yeah. Not exactly the same thing, but I just got reminded that for my Force Unleashed stands out there. One
It'd
day
be nice.
Starkiller will be canon, brothers, I believe. But
It'd be nice to see more things be willing to go as ham with the Force as the Force Unleashed. Maybe not quite pull a Star Destroyer out of the sky
yeah,
ham, but
I mean,
there's a lot of other smaller stuff in those games that I'm just like, man, why are people afraid to be cool with the Force?
if Starkiller comes in and like if he was made canon, definitely tone him down because that was kind of ridiculous. How he if man's pulling star destroyers out of the sky, I kind of wonder how he struggled to kill Vader at all. But like,
Yeah,
don't worry
like
about it. It's a video game.
we all know Vader's a badass, but if you can just do that, why not? Just crush the big man? Just turn
Yeah.
Tin Can Man into tin foil.
All right, but Force Unleashed, if brought up, is better brought up for the next episode
Yeah.
or the real extended stuff. Let's pop back to our side shows. I think we've pretty well covered Mando, Bo-Katan, Season 3, that good stuff. What else have we got? We've got Kenobi. It's probably worth talking about.
Yeah. Definitely worth talking
Kenobi
about.
was definitely flawed, but I enjoyed it more than I
I
expected to after like all the complaints I heard.
I enjoyed it, but I definitely didn't love it.
I don't know. I don't understand a lot of the complaints about it either. I don't get why people
Yeah,
were so
it's.
displeased with it.
I guess the way I felt about it, right, was that there was nothing wrong with it, but I didn't feel like it added anything to the story. It just was there. It was fun. I enjoyed it, but
It gave us a little bit. I liked seeing Obi-Wan's transition
yes,
from
I admit that was
Obi-Wan to
good.
Ben Kenobi.
I did enjoy
Because
that. That was good.
like Obi-Wan was like he was in tears watching the holograms of Anakin slaughter the younglings. He was broken up over his duel with Anakin on Mustafar. Like he was a shattered man.
Yeah,
And
like the
he
fall
just bounces
took him
back
with
in the
it.
old as it was before. He just comes right back. We're just expected to believe, oh yeah, he's fine. He just lives on Tatooine now. But no, he's a human, dude. He's a man. And he loved Anakin. That would have
Like a
destroyed him.
brother.
Yeah, like a brother. I loved how we saw his fear when he realized Vader was back, how we saw him struggle to face Anakin again. I loved the kind of the what am I trying to say here? The comparison, like the shifting back, the flashback to them dueling in the Jedi Temple,
Yeah.
culminating with the reason why Obi-Wan is beating Anakin, a lesson that he had yet to learn. We see the moment that Obi-Wan stops calling him Anakin and starts calling him Darth, the moment he accepts the narrative he tells Luke is true in his own mind, the moment he accepts that Anakin is dead, that Vader killed him.
Yeah, I mean, I will give it credit for what it did right. The transformation from Obi-Wan to Ben was fantastic, and it was. I did like seeing that happen. I will definitely not fault how it handled Kenobi's character at all. I won't fault how it handled Leia either. I think she was great at the little tiny version of Leia.
Yeah, surprisingly, that's one of the things I heard complained about the most was there were multiple people I talked to that's just like, God, yeah, but I hate child Leia so much. And I was like, why?
She was
She's
great.
just a kid.
She was fun. We love a precocious little
Like,
brat.
like she's fine. Like she's a little too right most of the time for my taste for a little kid, but like that's it. Other than
To be
that,
fair,
it's
sometimes
just
kids are weirdly like that. I don't know. Maybe
I
it's just
know,
because
but they do
maybe
they
it's just
do
because
they
I
do
used to
it.
work with kids, but like every now and then you come across one who is just right, and it's actually kind of disturbing.
Yeah, especially because you never know whether they're going to be humble about it or as smug as humanly possible. But
That was
I
me.
just feel
Hello.
like was Kenobi necessary is a question a lot of people ask, right?
definitely not
Necessary, no.
No,
necessary. No,
but I don't think it needed to be. It was
no.
fun.
If we only ever
It gave
told
me
stories that
more
were
of that.
necessary, there would be very few stories.
Exactly. It
The whole
gave
point of
us that
side stories is they're not necessary.
transitionary period. And I don't know. I got what I wanted out of it, and there were some like powerful lines in that. Like, what was it he says? There's at the end of their fight when Obi-Wan is apologizing to Anakin again because he still hangs on to that regret the moment that, like the transition is there. He says, and you can hear the James Earl Jones voice and the Anakin voice breaking into each other with the shattered helmet. He says, "I'm not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did." Such that like that line justified the whole show for me personally, because not only is it this bitter retort from Anakin to his master Vader taunting Obi-Wan in this like sick kind of broken tragic way, it is almost Anakin reassuring Obi-Wan
It's
that it
almost like,
wasn't his fault.
see, what I like about that is that it's both, and
It's
and
both,
they show
exactly.
that
It's
by doing
vicious.
the two voices with the cracked helmet.
It is vicious, it is cruel, and it's painful because Obi-Wan is being told Anakin's gone and you cannot save him anymore. But it's also like this final message from the man that he was to his old master that Anakin is gone, but you didn't kill him. You did everything right. I mean, he
Which is
didn't
also perfect
realistically,
No,
but
because it echoes that that's what he says to Luke later too. He tells Luke he's the one who killed his father.
yeah, which was a nice.
and
I do like that. Yeah, and that was
it
great.
was
The two voices. It was very good visual and auditory storytelling.
The other thing I appreciate about it too is he's also definitely talking to himself there because he still doubts whether he made the right decision or not. And he's simultaneously also reassuring him, trying to reassure himself that this is the path he's on. He didn't fall. He wasn't manipulated and pushed here. He killed Anakin Skywalker and became Vader.
Vader in the original trilogy. He started as an incredibly imposing villain. He became a redemption story. And as we got the prequels, we came to understand how horribly tragic a character Anakin Skywalker is. And if there's one thing I will give Disney's Star Wars media credit for, it is every single time they have handled Vader. Because every single time I'm talking Rogue One, I'm talking Kenobi, I'm talking, I'm even talking like the later episodes of Clone Wars, brief as that appearance is. I'm talking Jedi Fallen Order, and I'm talking about fucking Rebels. They fully hone in on what makes Vader compelling, not just in his original conception, but for what we know about him now. And they give us these fantastic moments of terrifying menace and pure evil. We see how much Anakin has broken and become this twisted, terrifying presence, but then they temper that with these horribly tragic moments that pull on your heartstrings because you know the man that this creature used to be, and it hurts you every time they remind you of it, and they always do it very well when they remind you of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Vader is consistently well handled. You hang on, like all the way, even going from before Disney bought it out. Like, if you watch his character arc like in chronological order, basically from tiny Anakin all the way up to our most recent experiences, all the way through to the end of his life, the character is consistent the whole way through. The whole way through, which is insane
Yep.
because this is a story that spans decades in universe as well as decades in reality.
You
It
know what?
is, yeah, it
I
is a
gotta
piece of
say,
fiction.
it's not going to be relevant for a few more weeks, but I also feel like the way they handle Vader, especially in that moment we were talking about, does a really good job staying true to one of my favorite lines from Kreia, especially with him trying to convince himself that he's supposed to be here and he didn't make a mistake. But my one of the favorite classic lines of it's such a quiet thing to fall. Far more terrible is to admit it.
Yeah. God, Kratos is
Yeah,
so good.
we'll get to her.
Yeah, that's next week ish.
Here's a good transition. Heart-wrenching, heartbreaking lines from Vader where his helmet is cracked and Anakin's
Yeah.
voice seeps in.
Ahsoka
Let's
Tano?
let's talk about Ahsoka Tano, because I feel like the first time we recorded this episode, we didn't get a lot of time to speak about her. I want to give her some more credit and focus because if we're talking about characters that represent fantastic writing in Star Wars media outside of the movies, she is the exemplar of this. She's the key. She's the core to everything.
Yeah, I
She's
mean,
Yeah, especially
she's
since she herself is much better outside of movies.
as far as
Mhm.
the like the TV media, because I mean, we'll get to Kreia next week. She's probably the best written character in Star Wars. I feel like it's not a stretch to say that.
Oh, she's definitely top three.
She's gone on such a journey to get here, which is a big part of it. Like, she has had so much growth as a person and a character since we got her on screen.
She
It's
starts as this annoying little kid, um, learning from Anakin, being kind of lectured to by Obi-Wan. She hits a lot of common notes that we've seen before. She interacts with these characters. She shows us new sides to them, but she's just a vessel for the show, for the initial Clone Wars, and showing us things surrounding her and how other characters can interpret and react to her. But as time progresses, we see her grow up. We see this little Padawan grow into a woman, into a warrior, into a fighter, into something incredible, into this character that spans multiple generations, has had a hand, a believable hand in the development and life of so many other characters. And someone who, despite everything, despite all of the horrible shit that has happened throughout all of these movie trilogies and all of these events, I'm not talking about, in terms of them being bad, I'm talking about just in universe events. She has persisted, and there's never been a bad appearance of Ahsoka Tano. Every single time we see her, it's great. And now she's getting her own show, and I'm
I
so
am
excited.
very excited to see what they do with that. I have
Trailers
no
look
idea.
fantastic so far.
I mean, it's obviously going to be centered around conflict with Thrawn's return, but other than that, I have not a clue.
But we're
That's
focused on
it's
Thrawn's
a good
return,
way
but we're
to
also
go
seeing
too.
these. We're seeing these like
The
Dark
orange
Jedi.
saber,
It
yeah,
looks like.
like
Yeah.
orange saber guys, yeah, they're interesting.
Are we? Is this going to be another Sith Inquisitor thing, or are we finally going to see Star Wars in a more open, like direct form of media?
From what I
Acknowledging the
Show
fact
us.
that
think
there
we
is
see.
not strictly just a Jedi and
I
the
think.
Sith.
Are we about to see a Force-sensitive faction that is not Jedi or Sith
Well, the thing is,
on
I think we
the
see,
quote-unquote big screen?
and I think we do see an Inquisitor separate to them, right?
That's true. We may do. I can't remember the trailer. I'll have to rewatch it at some
Yeah.
point soon.
So it's definitely very interesting. I mean, technically speaking, Ahsoka herself isn't part of the Jedi faction anymore either.
No, she's not. She's full on.
They kind of fucked her over.
The term "gray Jedi" is kind of a messy one, but it's the best one we can use to describe her right now.
She is an independent Jedi.
Freelancer.
Yeah, but no, she is
Yeah,
fantastic. And that, one of my favorite things about her is that even though she left the Order after they, wrongly accused her of horrible crimes,
literally witch hunted her.
yeah, straight up, exactly what it was basically. And she went on her soul searching journey. She still holds true to the tenements that mattered. Like, she embodies what the Jedi was supposed to be, and in doing so, I feel like embodies the best traits of her master and also her master's master, which I think is amazing.
Exactly. That's the beautiful thing. She's not only sticking true to the ideal of a good-hearted, heroic Jedi, the better parts of that creed, but she was tempered by Obi-Wan and Anakin, and as you say, she isn't just what a Jedi should be, she's what Anakin could have been if he hadn't fallen. She is impulsive, she's full of heart, she's full of love, she doesn't really reject her feelings. And temper that with the Jedi training, with nobility, with loyalty, with responsibility to the galaxy. And she is what they should be. She has become that ideal. The Jedi failed, and they failed her, but accidentally. They produced her. They created not a chosen one to balance the Force like Anakin was, of course, but they've created a hero. They've created the exemplar of what they could have been. And I think she embodies that a lot now. And I think that puts a lot of responsibility on her shoulders, on her morality, on who she is. I'd be interested to see if those are the kind of themes that get explored with her in the show. I'm hoping she's probably going to have some sort of development or personal journey over the course of her own series, I should hope. I'm excited to see where her character goes from here.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see her interacting with the Empire too, because one of Ahsoka's main character traits, not just in her personality, but in the way they used her as a character, nobody spent more time with or bonded with the clones and the officers in the Republic and like just the regular people than she did. She had a special connection with the soldiers she served under and with, or under, over, and with. And like
were
it'll
like
be
her
nice
brothers.
to see her interacting with stormtroopers and other members of the Imperials and Admiral Thrawn, who she shared a decent amount of screen time with when he was slightly less of a fuckboy.
Don't think I've ever heard
Yeah, I was like,
Grand
that is
Admiral
not
Thrawn
how I would
described as a
describe
fuckboy
Thrawn.
before, but
Not the typical kind of fuckboy, but he is a man and a fuck.
Shaka, brah, you ready to retake the Imperial space, man?
I'd
Let's
watch
go.
Dude, that was sick. Did you see those rebel scum blow up? Oh.
Yo,
The
Ahsoka,
unknown region
you're huge.
changed for one.
Man comes back and he's fucking ripped. He's just massive.
There was not a lot to do but work out.
Please don't actually do that. That would be such a horrible way to take his character.
Thrawn
If he
appears and he
even it,
rips his shirt off and screams.
yeah, oh my god.
The genius.
You rebel scum want to try to steal arms? Try these guns. Anyways.
Bah, 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 bah. Oh god, bump Thrawn, bro.
Doing the popping pecs.
he modifies himself as a cyborg whenever he pops a peck and fires like a high-degree blaster shot.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Now there's the Star Wars I want, Disney. Get on that.
Oh no.
That's the kind of fan service you need to give me.
But yeah,
I'm a fan. Where's the service?
reeling it back in, I genuinely am really curious to see what is going to happen with Ahsoka's series because I'm not sure where they're going to take her character at this point. It's because she's had such a full long arc. It's really interesting to see. Like, I have complete faith that Dave Filoni is gonna do his baby proud, but it's definitely interesting.
She's
She's come
a great
so
character.
far.
She has developed so much. She has such a rich history as a
She's
character.
exactly what we were
She's,
talking about earlier when we were talking about Vader. We were like, this is a character arc that we've seen spanning decades, both in and out of the universe. It's the exact same thing with Ahsoka. Not quite as long
and let's
because
not.
Vader appeared in the 70s, but
She's had a few appearances with her appearances in The Mandalorian being very entertaining, and her stint in Rebels. But let's not forget that last time we fully interacted with her, she was but the learner. But now she is the master,
Yep.
and we're going to get to explore. I want to see grown Ahsoka kicking the shit out of people. I want to see her in like the authority role. She's strong. She's earned her place. And there's a whole new problem, it looks like, with this Inquisitor's Force wielder with Tron coming back, and I want to see her at the forefront, facing off against it. I want to see what happens to her.
yeah, I think she's definitely going to be the sort of center point that deals with Thrawn's resurgence. Obviously, she can't completely crush the rebirthing. That didn't sound quite right. The reviving Empire because they need to exist long enough to become the First Order. But this new faction, Thrawn, Imperial remnants. She's got a lot of work to do, and it is definitely exciting to see where she goes. Like, because we've seen her kick some very serious ass as an adult. Like, we've got those incredibly cool moments. We got her, and this is something I do want to touch on as well. We got her mirroring Maul's entrance in Rebels with the fucking double doors opening dramatically. The two opponents who were completely outmatched.
That's true. I just hope they darken her sabers a little bit. Kind of irritated my eyes when she showed up in the Mandalorian.
Ah, well,
Okay, but
lightsabers. What you gonna
consider
do, I guess.
no. Um,
I don't
Uh,
like the lightsabers.
Also, let's speaking of Star Wars shows and just recent rumors in media. There was talk about this one show that I've been excited to see because I'm interested in it. Is perhaps you guys have heard of the Acolyte?
yeah, I've heard mention
Ah,
Um,
of it.
yes.
it's an upcoming Disney Plus show. It's set in the High Republic. Now, the High Republic is this new era that Disney has been brought in with some books that I've not read any of them to completion.
It's
I've started
basically
to read
like
one, but reading is hard.
it's the era
Um,
just before the prequels, right?
it is pre-prequels, yeah.
Yeah.
It is the height of the Republic's power, the High Republic era, and the Acolyte is the first, I guess, visual media. There have been books, quite a few books so far, but it's the first visual media that we're seeing getting put in this era. Now, there was rumors about the show's headrunner Leslie Headland being fired and the show being cancelled a couple of days ago. That I believe those rumors have been disproven. She is still working with the company, and the show is not cancelled. It's been a little bit messy right now, but how do we feel about a new era of Star Wars being explored, like stepping away from the sequel, stepping before the prequels, and giving us a whole new?
I am very eager for it because as much as I love the era we're in, and I do want to get back to that because there was something I was trying to get into we completely missed, but I want to see more of this world, and I want to see more of this world divorced from the Skywalker saga. And unfortunately, as much as I love the Mandalorian and as hyped as I am for Ahsoka and all these other things like that, they're still tied so strongly to that era of the world and that very long saga, and
Mhm.
it's a whole galaxy, which has been around for thousands
Everything
upon thousands of years. So I'm excited to see the world before that, separate.
Everything from the prequels onwards is Skywalker focused.
Yeah.
The Old Republic, completely removed from that, and it's great. We love the Old Republic. We'll talk about that next time. But everything's kind of tied to Revan there. Similar issue, different guy. The High Republic is interesting because it's not really connected to any of that. It's its own thing and place with new stories to tell.
And from what I can tell as well,
And
it'll be a very different take on storytelling because it's going to be the first, or at least in the Star Wars universe, in the visual media, the TV media, I guess. Apparently, it looks like it's going to be very Sith focused, which is interesting because that's something we haven't really done much of before. Like the games have done a little bit, but
we'll see. We don't have a lot of information about the Acolyte as of yet. The name certainly gives that idea.
yeah, I mean, I am very much theory crafting in this moment, but it definitely seems likely, and I'm excited to see that. That'll be interesting.
I am looking forward to it. The only thing that makes me a little nervous, and I'm mostly over it, it more made me nervous when it first happened. But when they very first like announced and started talking about the High Republic, they talked about it in a way, including referencing the Old Republic, that was giving very strong vibes of, well, we kind of wanted to make our own Old Republic thing, but everybody would be really mad at us if we messed up the Old Republic, and that's not our era, so we don't really want to make it anyways. So we're gonna do this, but like, I think that's probably smoothed out between now. That was like a feeling and a fear I had really strongly from the way they first announced it back in the day, a while back. But like, I don't want to let that color and give me negative assumptions.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It could go either way, and I'm definitely very curious and excited for it, though. But speaking of Sith, I do want to double back to Maul for a minute, because
Absolutely.
something I really wanted to touch on that is actual writing talk, even and not just me going, hype stuff. It occurred to me last time we attempted to do this as well. I don't know if I really got into it, but Maul and Ahsoka actually have really parallel stories. Like, their arcs mirror each other.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I would agree with that. Yeah.
They
Yeah, I mean,
both,
and the key difference between them is really just that Ahsoka learns from her mistakes.
yeah, because like they were both opposite sides, sure, but they are both apprentices who were extremely skilled, who were very talented, bright hopes, I guess, who were then effectively abandoned by their institutions or their masters or whatever, and then made something of themselves on their own. And eventually, and the fact that they clashed was honestly one of the best parts of the Clone Wars to me, because it was like seeing those two mirror elements collide. I very much enjoy the mirroring there, but I think that speaks, like the quality of the writing there speaks to something that I've really enjoyed about all of this like TV media around Star Wars, is that it has, and also something I'm very excited for the Acolyte, is that it has built the world out and filled in gaps and developed it so much more than the movies could have, because they didn't have the time. The Mandalorian, Clone Wars, Rebels, Boba Fett, kind of. Um, uh, Andor, we have barely touched. We haven't even touched on Andor. We'll have to get into that because that.
Andor is fantastic.
Yeah.
There's little I can say about it, I think, to discuss it on a deeper level. It's just really good. It's just fantastic writing. It's set in a great portion of the Star Wars timeline. It gives us, backstory and information to a fantastically written character from Rogue One, which is probably one of, if not the best Star Wars movie writing wise. The show completely builds on that. It doesn't flop. It doesn't let it down. It lives up to everything that it tries to do, and it does it all in a very nicely contained, well-written, digestible package, with some fantastic small bit characters, developments, and growth for pretty much everyone in that show, as well as still keeping enough of the Star Wars campiness and a little bit of laughing here and there to keep you in it and like understanding the universe that you're in. It's great.
One of the things
Probably the best Star Wars show that's been made.
Yeah, I mean, I jumped to Andor because is a really good example of exactly what I was just talking about, in that it does such a good job of building out the universe and showing what the Imperial era of the universe was like to live in. Arguably even more than Rogue One did. Like, it's it's the first
Well,
time.
yeah, because Rogue One, like everything else, it's not about living in the Empire. It's about trying to escape it or bring it down or fighting the
Yeah,
Empire. Andor has a little bit more of just life.
of just trying to get by, yeah, for a lot of it. And again, it's one of the Rebels couldn't do it too much, I guess, because it was more kid focused than even Clone Wars was, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, Rebels
Rebels
had
is
its
its
moments.
own
Don't get
can
me
of
wrong,
problems.
but it did a really good job of showing what it was like to live in that world. It gave us a taste of what the Orwellian, like, dystopian Star Wars that has always been implied for the Imperial era actually was. Like, I loved the, like, prison arc in Andor, where he was basically
Oh,
arrested for
that's
nothing,
yeah,
sent to
amazing.
this prison, and the whole thing, like, the prison just cycling people around, never letting them out, and basically just using them for slave labor till they die. Like, that was so poignant and brutal.
Yeah, how did the American prison system make it into Star Wars?
I mean, that Star Wars has always been
Yeah.
political. People just don't want to admit it.
Bro, I don't want to admit it. Yeah, it's political. Yeah, it's got like, art mimics reality. I don't want to fucking think about that. I
My
want to look
favorite
lightsabers and
thing
blaster
about
rifles. I don't want to think about the American prison system when I'm watching fucking Star Wars.
my favorite thing about Star Wars politics isn't even how they mirror real life events. It's how they mirror the feeling of real life. Because like Star Wars as a world does good politics. Palpatine's proof of that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's talking. We've gone over Kenobi, Andor, we've gone over The Mandalorian. We haven't really said much about Boba Fett, but we don't need to because we've talked about The Mandalorian.
Boba Fett's just kind of there hanging out.
Look,
I got
I'm
everything I
shitting on
needed from it.
I'm shitting on it a lot.
I know.
I liked
I got.
it.
Hey, listen.
It was genuinely a fun time, and I enjoyed seeing. I actually really did. You know what? Screw it. Two things I really did like about it was, one, the Tuscans' culture got explored so much more, and I really liked that because they've been just
Yeah, until
there
then,
for
Knights of the
so
Old
long.
Republic was the only thing that did that even a little bit.
Yeah, it was really cool seeing that and seeing someone get integrated with that, and it was cool to see where Boba's, like, is now mentally and things like that.
Yeah, he's found his own place. I like this interpretation of him better than the one from the comics back in the day of him becoming the new Mandalorian, rallying the Mandalorian people, because I don't think that's who he is at all.
No, it's
And
definitely
it doesn't make
weird.
sense for him to have like so much pride in being a Mandalorian. Like, he was never a Mandalorian. For one thing, his own dad, who raised him, was essentially a culture traitor to begin with, and like on top of that, he wasn't raised as a Mandalorian or any of that. He just has the cool armor. But besides all that, Boba Fett, I whatever else we can say about it, it gave me one thing I never knew I needed that I will always be happy with it for, and that's a Danny Trejo Rancor tamer.
That was fantastic. Yeah, that was great. Book of Boba Fett was definitely like it had its problems, but I mean it was fun. It was I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it. It's all that really matters to me at the end of the day with a Star Wars show is that I have a good time, and I did.
It's
Let the record
definitely
show that I did.
yeah, it's definitely has its faults, you know. It was weird that they use it to bring Grogu back into the picture instead of making that part of the Mandalorian properly. I feel like they underutilized Fennec a little bit because she's so fucking cool, man. Um,
She's so cool.
I love Fennec.
Yeah, I feel like there was a little bit of brand confusion with that, where some very like significant and important things for the Mandalorian happened in Book of Boba Fett. I've known one or two people who just like went straight into Mando season 3 and got very confused.
oh, he's back. Why?
Um, exactly.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been really better, way better if he either didn't show up at all or he genuinely was just a little side bit character in Boba Fett's story, as long as Boba Fett was what we were watching.
I still had a good time with it,
Yeah.
but
Me too.
definitely, yeah, that was a bit odd. Probably could have handled that a bit better.
All of this, though, all of these pieces of media spread across the years, really, if we start factoring in Clone Wars and things like that. I think it's very important that we acknowledge like why these series are so good in a broader scope, which is again what they contribute to the mythos and the universe, because they tie things together so well and they expand on so many things that you barely think about, or you do think about and need answers for. And it would be wrong of us not to sing the praises of God himself, Dave Filoni.
The
Yeah,
man,
I
the
mean,
myth,
he's doing
the
a great
legend.
job. I think it's a good idea not to idolize him too much, but he is
I mean,
he is
I'm being
doing a great
hyperbolic on
job.
purpose. Don't worry about it. I obviously don't believe he's infallible. I mean, look at Boba Fett.
We've seen
But
he's not infallible,
yeah,
but
but
he's
he's
doing good
doing
work.
such good work, and
He really is, yeah.
credit to him. He is trying so hard to make the First Order make sense.
He is putting in so much work to try to give us a decent explanation for all of the stupid shit that happens in the sequel trilogy.
And he's doing a
Godspeed.
decent job of it. Like,
So much effort to fix something that's not his fault and not his problem, and got dumped on him anyways.
and
When
credit
look,
to him,
when
he's making
when
it
it
work
all
as well as it could.
when it all comes together, when all is said and done, if you pull it back and you look at like a timeline of events from the original trilogy to the sequel trilogy, Dave Filoni is going to make like that narrative story make some sense as to how it happens. It's still going to be bad, but it's got like we'll be able to look at it as like, okay, this is tolerable. It happened. Let's move on, rather than exunt it from all forms of media. Please, God, please. You know. Like,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, I joke about putting him on a pedestal and things like. Obviously, he's not Bell, but one of the things I really do appreciate is that he really does love this universe, and that is a big reason he's being so thorough and doing such a good job of it, because we've seen what happens when people who don't love what they're doing are in charge of the projects.
Eat your heart out, MCU. This
If
is
you
what
don't-
real expanded universe building looks like.
if you don't love the world you love, or if you don't love the work you do, I should say, don't do it.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
it's the same as like
Have
when
some,
you
do something else.
Yeah. It's the same as like when you get people who don't like superhero movies making superhero movies. They don't turn out well.
Yeah, honestly, bro, for real. And it's a side tangent. The MCU, I don't want to talk about where it is right now, but I miss it. Secret Invasion seems okay so far, though. So,
At least Guardians of the Galaxy 3 happened.
bro, those are good movies. I still have not watched the third one, but
It's
look at that!
very
Sci-fi makes everything better again. Thanks, Star Wars.
it's very good, even though I was very shocked to realize that a major element of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is actually plot stuff that's from Spider-Man stuff way far back in the day that's not Spider-Man stuff anymore.
So yeah, Star
That's
Wars.
all
I don't
I'll
know
say
what that
about
means, but
Yeah, I feel like there's things that we've missed. There's just so much of it. Oh yeah, I've forgotten his name now, but the guy who's like trying to reform himself in Mando season 3. Got to touch on that, because I feel like that's definitely something we've missed. Is that the New Republic kind of not great in some ways.
Yeah, Operation Paperclip's pretty rough.
yeah, it's not super fantastic, but
But I really like
people
that.
need
Like,
people also no, I like it narratively. It's just not super fantastic in world.
yeah.
People need to understand though that like you cannot have a ruling body of government over that large an area without corruption being a part of it. And if you think that is something that's impossible, you need to reality check yourself with the real world very quickly, because we can't even fucking manage that with a planet.
A major
We can't
aspect
manage
of
that with
how the
individual
Republic
states.
fell. It's a major aspect of how the Republic fell in the first place. Palpatine, if the old Republic had been ironclad and uniform in its quality across, if it hadn't been so big that there was so much lost communication and so many little ways here and there for things to go wrong, so many places where they already were going wrong, he wouldn't have been able to do half the stuff he did.
Yeah.
True based Star Wars knowledge is understanding that the Confederacy of Independent Systems had a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
A pretty valid
that's one of
point.
the things I really liked about Clone Wars is that every now and then it like peeled back the curtain that little bit and let you see things from the Confederacy's point of view, and they were like, huh, because they weren't just all raving lunatics like Dooku and we see how it happened now because we have Tales of the Jedi, so we've seen Dooku's origins play out on screen and how he fell to an extent. We've seen that like they really did have a point. There was corruption and all kinds of problems going on with the Republic. We've seen they weren't a tyranny or anything like that. They had their own.
Dooku was a
They
close
had
friend
their
of
own
Qui-Gon
Senate
Jinn.
and things like that.
Dooku and Qui-Gon like had a lot of thoughts and things in common. Like,
Yeah.
The Republic is just the evil UN. We need the good UN.
yeah,
But
when do we get the good UN?
I
Can we download that update?
but I really like that that these through lines and consistency through the world building through again decades of storytelling, and I appreciate that in the world building for the TV series they've looked at the situation and gone, it's not like the rebels killing Palpatine, not that was actually them, it was Vader, but not like Palpatine's death happening and the defeat at Endor was gonna just mean everything was okay suddenly. The movies kind of imply that, but in reality, this is a huge monolithic thing, and they've just lopped off the head, and now it's splintered and all over the place and still a problem. And
Hail Hydra.
they're, they've built something else on top of it, but they're still trying that, like, they're still in the process of trying to regain control and order. And in doing so, they are in danger of becoming the thing that they just destroyed. And I really appreciate that they show us that. Because, surprisingly, when you topple an empire, the world just doesn't, like, the universe doesn't just immediately decide everything's okay again.
You don't just kill a spooky old man in a chair and then the entire galaxy decides we're good again now.
Yeah. There is years upon years of propaganda and manipulation and brainwashing, sometimes in the literal sense, to deal with.
And many, many layers of governmental and militaristic infrastructure, too.
Yeah, and also many people who all have their own agendas who are playing the political game within the Empire who are now trying to seize control and things like that.
Some
Game of
people
Thrones
watching Star Wars really think you can just kill a boomer and flick the happy mode switch and that's it.
Damn Zoomers.
Yeah. Fuck them Zoomers, I guess.
Zoomers and Boomers.
Fuck millennials too. Just fuck everyone.
Oh yeah, no, millennials are terrible. Speaking as one, fuck millennials.
Yeah, that's
well,
on that note, that's the message you should take from this episode, audience. Fuck everyone. This is the way.
This is the way.
We should just revert to tribal warrior culture.
Oh yeah, that'd go well.
Eat the weak.
Well, on that
this is the way.
Yeah. Mandalorians, let's go. Classic.
On that note, we will end it there. It's been about time. We've jumped all over the place. We've covered the main points, I think. We've said a lot of random shit. We talked about Shirtless Thrawn.
Buff Thrawn will live rent-free in my head from now on. Damn
right, as he should.
Admiral Chadley Thrawn.
Chadmiral Thrawn.
Admiral Thrawn.
Okay,
let's go.
We're done here.
Grand Chadmiral Thrawn. Don't forget. Remember, viewers.
As always, you can find this podcast both on my site, radfordwrites.com, if you're listening from Spotify, or on Spotify or Google Podcast if you're listening from the website. I upload all kinds of other stuff there these days, including articles and stories and poetry and all that sort of thing. You can also find me at DanielWright7 on Twitter, where I occasionally post things. Still bad at it, still trying. And you will certainly see more of these guys in the future because I will continue to drag them into my projects.
And also because I'm coming to your house.
That too.
I'm outside your windows right now, viewers, listeners, whatever you are.
Good
Yay, projects.
May the force be with you. You'll need it.